Davies, leader of the New Democratic Party of Canada, and I am pleased to be joined by my colleague Alexandre Boulerice, who is the Member of Parliament for Rosemont-La Petite Patrie, and he is the NDP Labour critic. I'm also pleased to be joined by Natasha Stea, who is President of CUPE Local 4091, representing over 2,000 flight attendants at Air Canada's Montreal base. And we're also joined by Isabelle Paquette, who is a flight attendant with Canadian North. And finally, we're joined by Marie-Hélène Nadeau, who's a flight attendant with Air Transat. Today in Parliament, I was proud to introduce the Flight Attendants Remuneration Act. This legislation addresses a serious and long-standing issue in Canada's airline industry, the widespread practice of unpaid work by flight attendants. Under current industry standards, Canadian flight attendants are expected to perform a wide range of essential duties without pay when the aircraft is not in motion. This includes preparing the cabin, conducting safety checks and demonstrations, assisting with boarding and deplaning, helping passengers with mobility challenges or special needs, and responding to medical or safety emergencies on the ground. Despite the importance of these tasks, flight attendants receive no compensation for performing them. On average, this amounts to 35 hours of unpaid work every month, nearly a full week of lost income. This is both unfair and exploitative. These are hours worked. They are essential duties performed. Flight attendants have no choice but to perform them, and they deserve to be compensated for them. Now, flight attendants have been raising their voices about this issue for years. They've made it clear that the status quo, where flight attendants are forced to work for free, is unacceptable and must come to an end. And despite this practice being well known, successive Liberal and Conservative governments have refused to act. Instead, they have ignored this injustice and disingenuously denied even knowing about it. Earlier this year, flight attendants at Air Canada took the courageous step of walking off the job to demand fair treatment and an end to unpaid work. And what was the Liberal government's response? Less than 12 hours into that strike, they invoked Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code to order them back to work. Instead of ensuring fair pay for flight attendants, the Liberals made them fight for it at the bargaining table, and then they took away their right to strike when they did just that. For a government who claims to support workers' rights, this was an appalling betrayal. No one in Canada, no one, should be expected to work for free. That should be a basic employment right in any modern democratic state. And workers should not have to bargain for an end to servitude. The bill that I introduced today will require airlines to pay flight attendants their full rate of pay for all hours worked or in service of their employer, including pre-flight, post-flight, and training time. This legislation is about respect. It's about recognizing the professionalism and dedication of flight attendants and ensuring that they're compensated fairly for the critical, safety-sensitive work that they do every day. I urge all members of Parliament to support this bill and help it get passed without delay. Let's stand up for fairness in the workplace. Let's end unpaid work in the airline industry once and for all. Now I will turn the podium over to my colleague Alexandre Boulerice.
Merci. Merci Don. Bonjour tout le monde. Ça me fait extrêmement plaisir d'être ici aujourd'hui pour supporter le projet de loi de mon collègue Don Davies, qui est le chef du NPD. Depuis trop longtemps, depuis trop d'années, les agents de bord dans ce pays subissent une grave injustice. Vous savez, ils travaillent des heures tous les semaines, tous les mois, sans être payés. En fait, à vrai dire, tant que la porte de l'avion n'est pas fermée, tout le travail qu'elles ont fait avant, n'est pas payé. Alors, toute la préparation de la cabine, l'aide aux passagers, des personnes qui ont de la difficulté avec leur bagage, des problèmes de mobilité, tout ce travail-là des agents de bord est gratuit. Les compagnies aériennes ne les payent pas. Trouvez-moi un autre secteur industriel ou économique dans lequel les travailleurs et les travailleuses ne seront pas payés pour l'ensemble des heures qu'ils vont effectuer. Alors, ces gens-là ont le droit au respect et on doit réparer cette injustice-là comme parlementaire, c'est la moindre des choses. Mais le gouvernement libéral de M. Carney use et abuse d'une section du Code canadien du travail qui nie le droit à la libre négociation puis aux moyens d'exercer des moyens de pression. Quand les agents de bord d'Air Canada récemment ont essayé de changer ça et d'obtenir le respect puis la justice puis d'être payés pour toutes les heures qu'ils travaillent, mais les libéraux de Mark Carney ont utilisé l'article 107 pour forcer le retour au travail puis empêcher les moyens de pression qui étaient exercés tout à fait dans leur droit. Donc, non seulement nous, au NPD, on veut abolir l'article 107 du Code canadien du travail, mais on veut également faire en sorte qu'on ne puisse plus avoir cette situation complètement absurde où des gens travaillent sans être payés pour les heures dans lesquelles ils travaillent. Donc, je suis très content d'être ici aujourd'hui avec des agents de bord, avec mon collègue Don Davies, pour mettre de l'avant ce projet de loi, cette législation qui est tellement importante pour réparer un tort dont ces gens-là subissent depuis des années. Là-dessus, je vais laisser la parole à Natasha qui va vous parler de la situation réelle sur le terrain qu'ils vivent.
Merci. Good morning. My name is Natasha Stea, and I'm the president for CUPE Local 4091, representing Air Canada's flight attendants based in Montreal. I've been a flight attendant for 27 years, and I love my job. I love welcoming passengers, helping nervous flyers feel calm, and being part of the journey that connects people across the country and around the world. As flight attendants, we are dedicated safety professionals who go the extra mile every day. But for too long, our dedication to our work and our passengers has been taken advantage of by some of the most profitable companies in this country. For years, flight attendants have been expected to work for free during boarding, delays, deplaning, emergencies on the ground, and more. All of that time, we are responsible for passenger safety, managing emergencies, caring for families, and ensuring vital safety rules are being observed, all without pay. En tant qu'agents de bord, nous sommes des professionnels de la sécurité dévoués à aller plus haut et plus loin pour nos passagers. Mais depuis longtemps, notre dévouement envers notre travail et nos passagers est exploité par certaines des entreprises les plus rentables de ce pays. Depuis des années, on s'attend que les agents de bord travaillent gratuitement pendant l'embarquement, les retards, les débarquements, les urgences au sol et plus encore. Tout ce temps, nous sommes responsables de la sécurité des passagers, nous gérons les urgences, prenons soin des familles et veillons au respect des règles de sécurité essentielles. Tout cela sans être payé. This past summer, my colleagues and I at Air Canada took the brave decision to go on strike to say loud and clear, unpaid work won't fly any longer. Unfortunately, instead of respecting our right to strike, the federal government sided with Air Canada and used Section 107 to try to strip our chartered right and our ability to freely negotiate an end to unpaid work. In the end, because we defied the government's unjust back-to-work order, we were able to negotiate important progress on ending unpaid work. But this profound injustice persists at Air Canada and at every major carrier in this country. The strike at Air Canada changed this conversation forever. It wasn't easy to stand on a picket line instead of being in the skies, but we knew what was at stake. Not just fair pay, but respect for our work and respect for our profession and the labor that keeps our industry safe every day. Canadians saw that they understand that we're not asking for special treatment. We are just asking to be treated fairly. This summer's dispute at Air Canada and the Liberals' intervention on behalf of Air Canada to take away our bargaining right made one thing clear. Workers should not have to negotiate the right to be paid while they're at work. It should be the minimum standard and the law of the land. Today, I'm proud to be here at this legislation, while this legislation is tabled, to recognize our work and our right to be treated like every other Canadian. All work deserves to be paid. With this bill, we are one step closer to be a Canada where every worker is afforded the respect and the right to be paid for every minute on the job. Les travailleuses et travailleurs ne devraient pas avoir à négocier pour avoir le droit d'être payés pendant qu'ils travaillent. Cela devrait être une norme minimale et un principe fondamental de notre pays. Aujourd'hui, je suis fière d'être ici, alors que le projet de loi est déposé afin de reconnaître notre travail et notre droit d'être traités comme toutes les autres Canadiennes et Canadiens. Tout le travail mérite d'être rémunéré. Et avec ce projet de loi, nous avançons un pas de plus vers un Canada où chaque travailleuse et travailleur bénéficie du respect et du droit d'être payé pour chaque minute passée au travail. I want to thank Don and the whole NDP caucus for their incredible support, as well as former MP Bonita Zarillo, who has been a steadfast champion for our rights. I also want to remind other parties that this is not a partisan issue. Canadians are united on this issue. 9 in 10 Canadians, polled in August by Abacus, said that they want to end unpaid work. Support this bill, stand on the right side of history, and let's end unpaid work for flight attendants in Canada now and forever. Merci. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take any questions you may have.
Yes, Mr. Davies, on this, we've heard the Conservatives also make some noise on unpaid work for flight attendants. Have you talked to any parties about trying to get this legislation passed through, and how does it work with things that Minister Haiju is working on with her probe into unpaid work?
Well, I'll take the last part first. There is no need for a probe into unpaid work. It's well known in the industry. I think it's disingenuous of Minister Haiju to indicate to the public that there's something to be discovered here. It's happening every day, and we have to end it. With respect to the Conservatives, I'm hoping that they will support our bill. We just introduced it this morning, so I intend on having discussions along with my colleague, Monsieur Boulerice, with his counterparts as well, both in the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives, and we'll reach out to the government as well, because this should be passed as quickly as possible by unanimous consent, in my view.
Additionally, we have the budget coming up. There were reports that you had some conversations with Mr. McKinnon about potential more funding for the NDP in exchange for supporting the budget in some form or another. What do you have to say to these reports, and what would it take to get NDP support in the upcoming budget?
Well, those reports are 100% false, categorically untrue. There's been no discussions whatsoever with the government about exchanging anything with the government for our support for the budget. So it's simply not true. I think what you might be referring to is 4 days after the election on April 28th, I said that the NDP was seeking official party status, and that would be seeking financial support to support our work here as parliamentarians. We sent a letter to the Board of Internal Economy in June, and that letter's been sitting there ever since. And finally, any decision to give the NDP any kind of parliamentary resources to do our work here would require unanimous support by the Conservatives, the Bloc Québécois, and Liberals. So it's not even anything that could be exchanged. As I've said before, we're going to wait as a caucus for that budget to be tabled. It's a very important budget. We're going to analyze it when it comes out through the lens of whether or not it's good for working families. We've been very clear that we will oppose any attempt at imposing austerity on Canadians at a time when we think we need to invest. We need to invest in Canadian communities, Canadian companies, Canadian workers, and Canadian infrastructure. And You know, we've been also very clear that we're going to be looking at this budget to create good family-sustaining jobs, build non-market affordable housing, and also strengthen our healthcare system. So we've been very clear with this government where we stand, and we'll wait till November 4th to see if the government responds.
Rahim Ahmed, National Post. I've got a question for Mr. Boulerice. I wasn't expecting him to be doing double duty with Heather McPherson, but quite a jog in 10 minutes. So, Mr. Boulerice, we're about a month in earnest.
I want an increase in my pay.
I think so. That's fair. Speaking of unpaid labor. But Mr. Boulerice, we're about a month in earnest into the NDP leadership race. So far, we have 3 contenders that have come forward, major contenders, all Anglophones, with French proficiency levels ranging from beginner to intermediate. I asked Mr. Ashton, he used the word merde, that was his language, not mine. So are you concerned about the NDP's ability to regain a foothold in Quebec without leadership with greater fluency and proficiency in the French language?
You know, I know Mr. Ashton for many years, and I'm not really surprised that he's using that kind of vocabulary. He's from Labour. And, you know, what I said, and I'm going to say the same thing, is that I want candidates that are interested in Quebec, in Quebec specificity and in culture and language. And they are doing their best and trying to learn the language, and they are all doing that. You know, we will measure the success of their, you know, apprentissage, their learnings at the end of November in Montreal. The debate will be in vast majority in French. So I'm waiting for that debate. I'm waiting to see their performance, and after that, maybe I will put my support behind somebody.
Mr. Davies, I'm just wondering, you're a small caucus, but you have a lot of diverse views and people from across the entire country. Will everyone vote the same way on the budget?
Well, it's a tradition in our party, and I think actually in almost all parties, to vote as a bloc on confidence measures. So that's what we would expect in this case as well.
And I'm just wondering, Steve McKinnon today, he was talking about that there could be a possibility of an election because he said he was worried about the opposition parties, you know, signaling they might not support the budget. I'm just wondering, you know, your party is in the middle of a leadership race, just 6 months out of the worst election ever. How can you go into an election right now if that was the case?
Well, I think first and foremost, I don't think Canadians want an election right now. We just had one 6 months ago. This is the first budget of a new government. So I think it's entirely up, the question of whether there's an election is entirely up to Mr. Carney. As the leader of a government with a minority in Parliament, it's up to him to craft a budget that can win the support of at least one opposition party. That's his job. So, you know, for Mr. McKinnon to say he's worried, well, that has me worried because the government should be reaching out to all the parties and working collaboratively to make sure that they can get enough votes to have the budget passed. You know, we're not afraid of an election. You know, I don't think Canadians want one right now. I think we face some pretty serious threats from south of the border. Our economy is performing very poorly. I just saw inflation numbers come out today, 2.4%, housing up 4%, and groceries up 4%. These are on top of already stratospheric, unaffordable prices that Canadians are struggling with across this country. We have a jobs crisis. You know, GM's closing a plant, Stellantis is closing a plant, Imperial Oil's laying off workers across this country. So there's serious issues, I think, facing our Parliament. You know, I would like to get to work in Parliament to find solutions with my colleagues in the NDP. That's what I'm focused on right now. You know, if Mr. Carney provides a budget that no party can support, we'll go take our fight to the Canadian people, and you know, we'll bring New Democrat solutions to people if that's what's necessary.
On the question of talks over resources, are there not any talks right now, not related to the budget, but just in general between you and the government about the NDP getting extra resources despite not reaching official party status?
Our letter to the Board of Internal Economy that we sent in June to the Speaker of the House has been sitting on their desk ever since. It's up to the Board of Internal Economy. We don't have a seat at that table. The Liberals, Conservatives, and Bloc do. And I'm told that they only make decisions by consensus. So all three parties have to agree. And, you know, what we've asked for is not money for extra salaries for us. It's to hire some staff so that we can perform our parliamentary functions, which we think is important, especially in a minority parliament where, you know, Parliament, it's complex, it moves fast, it changes. And, you know, for us to be able to participate meaningfully, it's important that we have sufficient staff. I would point out as well, in every legislature in this country, routinely governments provide resources and give party status to parties with less than the regular number. Conservatives have done it to Liberals, Liberals have done it to the NDP's done it to Greens. This is a convention in this country. So it's not unusual for a party like ours, who had 1.2 million votes, is nationally represented in a minority parliament, to say, look, we need some resources to help us carry out our work on behalf of Canadians. So I'm not apologizing to anybody for pursuing those resources to help us do our job in Parliament, but it's really up to the three parties on the Board of Internal Economy to decide that question.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. And Natasha, just go back to the matter of the bill at hand. Mr. Haiju is holding stakeholder meetings throughout the last month or so here. Did you take part in the one that she held with airline workers?
Yes, I have. Routine questions, but as Mr. Davies said, it's something that they've known of for a very long time. The same things are being repeated. I could tell you for the past 27 years, I have never been paid for all the hours, minutes, and time I have spent at work. So it's not something new. It's not something that needs, extensive research. It's always been in Canada, and it needs to end now.
And just how would you characterize the kinds of questions the government reps were asking at this table?
Very vague questions, very yes, thank you. Very dismissive, very vague, very superficial would be a way to describe the questions. It's very easy to show. We have a check-in and a check-out time for our day. I could bring you my paycheck, and you could see all the time that is missing off my paycheck.
Also for Natasha, so flight attendants, I think for quite some time have been some of the most highly trained professionals in Canada in terms of the length of training, in terms of the rigors of your training, and I believe being a flight attendant is one of the most competitive fields to get into. So sort of one way is one avenue to better treatment, better wages, better treatment around things like unpaid work, opening the Canadian airline sector to greater competition, including foreign competition, to give carriers, to force carriers to compete for the services of a highly trained and highly sought after group of employees?
Well, first of all, you need to have patience and grace as a flight attendant. Yes, you're right. We are highly trained. The training usually lasts about 2 months. You're trained, I could speak for Air Canada, we are trained on more than 10 types of aircrafts. We know how to evacuate these aircrafts within 90 minutes. Things have changed over my 27 years. I could speak of that. The responsibilities have become greater. We used to be responsible for 40 passengers for one flight attendant. Now the legislation has changed. That is 50 passenger per flight attendant. So things are becoming more and more difficult. The responsibilities on a flight attendant are becoming more and more arduous. I could say that our flight attendants not only have a requirement to obviously love flying and being at the air and live with the lack of oxygen, but also we were there for passenger security. Since 9/11, we've also been the eyes and ears for the pilots because the doors are closed. So there is a lot more on our plates. to answer your question, there's a lot more responsibilities for us, and I like mentioning this to a lot of passengers that or people that will listen. Our job actually starts as soon as we get to the airport, because you're going through security, customs, all this, but you're looking around and you're there observing what's going on. You get on the aircraft, you're preparing the aircraft, you're also observing who's coming on your plane and what could happen later on. So you're always on the edge of your seat, if I may, and security and passenger safety is always, your first thought.
So would increasing the number of carriers relative to the workforce give flight attendants leverage to bargain for better wages and better benefits?
I don't know if that would actually give more leverage. We understand that there's so many mergers going on in Canada, but there are a lot of flight attendants. Air Canada actually employs more than 10,000 flight attendants. We're talking about more than 2,000 at Air Transat. We've got all these great companies starting out. We need flight attendants. We need experienced flight attendants. We need to train them. We train on first aid, safety, security. So having more competition, I don't know if that's something that's going to play into the way we get paid. I could speak for Air Canada. It's a company that's been making billions of dollars in profit on our backs. Our company has used our labor to make all this profit. So we're there, we're working, we're ensuring passenger safety, we're representing our employer all over the world. Most of the Canadian companies do that. I don't know if having more competition is going to help. Excuse my my lack of answer on that. I think we just need to start paying the labor that is your frontline workers that represents.
You've been in the field 27 years, and has it been more common in recent years to see Air Canada flight attendants move over to WestJet or to other carriers that have entered the market?
It depends. To be quite honest, most people come to Air Canada because we were the representative of our country. We are the flag-bearing carrier. So most people come to us. We've always been leaders in our industry, and I think that's why we're also looking at our employer to say, you've always been a leader. I could actually say with confidence in the 80s, Air Canada was the first company to ban smoking. They've been leaders in the industry. I think they should be a leader in paying their employees. Thanks.
Thank you. That's all the time we had. Merci, c'est tout le temps que nous avions. Ceci conclut la conférence de presse. This concludes the press conference.
Merci.